My name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine. Today we are talking about connected to the self. Are you connected to yourself? Do you know what your desires are, what your loves are, what your passions are, what your interests are, what your core values are, and are you living by those? Feel free to hit pause and check in. I've been thinking about this a lot. It has come up many times in my Akashic Records readings. You can go to akashicresources.com, AKASHIC, akashicresources.com. And they offer a wide variety of past life readings and reports that you can get on past life readings that are connected to specific topics that ultimately serve the self. Sometimes the reports tell me things that I don't desire to hear. They recently told me some things. It's like, I don't desire to hear that because I'm experiencing a disconnection with someone that I really want to be connected to. And they point blank were like, no, you need to disconnect. This is complete. And it's like, ew. But what I do know is everything I've ever received from these reports has absolutely 100% been a medicine to me and has aided me to greater clarity, greater health, greater self-love, greater self-care, self-respect. In that vein, one of the ways that we self-care, self-respect, self-love, there's so much on that topic. That's like humanity's constantly told, like, love yourself, respect yourself, care for you, put you first, treat yourself. But then for a lot of people that are very outward focused and tend to think of others, and, their tendency is not to go within and to connect to the self. And in that disconnection, they feel frustrated, exhausted, drained, because if you're not tuned in to your star player, if you're not at home in your vessel, your flesh sack, your flesh costume, your flesh bag you're dragging around and breathing in, if you're not putting this thing called you in the throne chair of the temple room of your beingness, then you might find that a lot of experiences are unpleasant. This is unpleasant. And it's because when we are disconnected from the self, this is the thing I keep receiving from the Akashic Records, is that when you're disconnected from yourself, that can lead to experiences of frustration, irritation, aggravation, misunderstandings. A lot in life can trickle down from being disconnected from yourself. So if you, like me, are a pretty flexible person, if you are mutable, Gemini rising, Sag sun over here, like to mutate into different frequencies, I've spent a lifetime doing that. And it's just now at 45. In the past year, I've started to get really good boundaries, and it's jarring. It is jarring to have self-respecting boundaries that I stick by. It's jarring because it's like, ugh, some of them I don't want to stick by because I have a long journey of experiences in which I was willing to disconnect from myself to, quote unquote, honor a relationship that isn't honoring me, to value my connection to another person, place, thing, job, creation, relationship, lover, friend, whatever that is. I have chosen to value that instead of truly checking in and connecting to the place that is me and being like, okay, there are certain experiences we can have with another that maybe, let's say, touch a core value for you. And you go, that is not what I would do if I was in your shoes. Now, I think it's really important when that happens to not judge that person. We can go, I do not understand that. Like, I would not choose that. I wouldn't choose it. I wouldn't choose that. I would never choose that. Like, to me, that feels out of integrity, or to me, that feels like we don't have to judge the other person because they are their own matrix of experiences. There's almost 8 billion people here at Earth School. We all have different stories we're walking around with about who we are and what our values are. They don't have to align. And it can sometimes take some time to go, wait, our values don't align. That can take some time to see. But sometimes when you naturally pour yourself into relationship, you pour yourself fully into that which comes into your life, but maybe are willing to sacrifice or pour less energy into your own vessel, your own self, your own consciousness, your own attention, because you're constantly pouring the self into your relationships. You're a big giver. You might find yourself to be disgruntled, irritated, frustrated because you have this experience of being disconnected. In order for me to maintain harmony in this relationship, here's an unconscious conversation throughout Heather's life. In order for me to maintain harmony in this relationship, I will have to disconnect from that core value of mine. I'll have to disconnect from this thing that I said in order for me to stay with you, I'll have to break this contract with myself. Now that's never going to be a self-loving, self-respecting, self-care act. And every time it will lead to disappointment. And it's okay. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to not get it perfect. It's okay. Life is messy. We didn't come here to mind our P's and Q's all the time. We came to grow, and Shadow Teacher is a great teacher. So is Light Teacher. They all teach us. My goal typically, if I am struggling, is to always restore my attention to one of two places. And throughout my life, this has been, there's certain things that I'm like, that is one of the largest medicines that I could offer humanity from my medicine bag. And the one I'm giving you today is one of the largest throughout my life. I want you to think about all the relationships that have ruptured in your life. Are there any people that you have known, that you have loved, perhaps that have died, or friends that you no longer talk to, or lovers that you no longer choose to engage with? Are there any relationships, perhaps even a job, where something has ruptured and that has fallen out of your life? And then perhaps you've noticed more comes in and it keeps elevating, the quality of relationships you experience or the quality of jobs you have, but that is done. What you might find if you are somebody that tends to pour out towards others and really value your connection with others more than you value connection with self is that you cycle through a lot of experiences and a lot of different people because you're not in alignment with the number one player in the game called you. So the way we can reconnect to the self, if you've been pouring attention into somebody and then that disconnects, you may find that it's hard to get your attention off of it. That's definitely what I've been doing. I had a recent disconnection and I'm just like, stop thinking about that. Don't think about it. And then it's like, don't think about the purple elephant in the room. You totally picture purple elephant in the room. So the medicine I've given myself throughout my life is to restore my attention, restore my connection, restore my awareness, restore my sanity back to myself. So when I have a rupture in connectivity in my life, whether that be through a death, strife, disconnection, different core values, things that don't ultimately align, what I do is as much as possible each day, and as quickly as possible, I step more and more and more into a committed contract and focus on myself, my temple, being connected to who I am. Who are you, Heather? Who are you today? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? What are your values? What are your core values? What things are you just like, I don't want that in my life and I'm not going to align with it? What are those? It's important to know those. What do you want? I want better oral hygiene care. I wasn't raised with a lot of that as somebody who was just like a wild feral child, just like a wild animal. So all of a sudden flossing can become a priority, which it is, or exercising can become a priority, or study, self-care focus, self-care studies through YouTube, through, psychological understandings or quantum mechanics, or we can turn the attention, and I keep saying this because I feel like it's such a valuable hour with so many things trying to grab our attention, from social media to other two-leggeds to potentially four-leggeds or feathered brethren, or maybe you have a friend in the insect kingdom that's a part of your house. Whatever that is, there are many things that will garner your attention, like even just existence. Like I've got to release waste and eat food and do laundry and cook. Blah, blah, blah. So then outside of that, how much time and attention is really devoted to the temple of your own evolution? So one of the number one medicines I've used throughout my life when I'm struggling, facing disconnection, facing loss, is to get connected to the self. What can I do that lifts me up, that takes me more in the direction of where I want to go? Let me focus in on the star player in the movie of my life. What can I do today to give her more? What I did yesterday is I blew bubbles, and I used to be in the ballet, so I danced around my house like a ballerina. Today, I just took $5,000 out of my savings and I threw it up in the air around my house, like, wee, and made a mess. Then my OCD was like, oh. But then I just like kept doing it to just kind of release this need to constantly have everything. And it was just like so fun and free for me to feel what that feels like. What can you do today that connects you more to yourself, connects you into your star player? How can you practice greater self-stewardship? Can you begin journaling and journaling about, these are my core values. These are my no's. If I'm engaging with a two-legged and this shows up, that's a no. That's a hard pass. And I can pray for you, or I can hold high consciousness for you, or I can wish well for you. But no. No, I'm not going to make an intense connection with a person that's toxic. If you have these core values, wow, that's a match. We are equally yoked. I want more connection with that person, with that two-legged, because they align my frequency with all that I seek to be. And that which aligns me to the life that I came to live is in alignment. That's in alignment for me to have more of that in my life. There are times when I've come out of connections, relationships, had experiences of loss through death or just dysfunctional things that eventually hit my core value, and I was like, bye. What I can say is that the second focus, if I'm in a low self-esteem place, if I'm struggling with really putting the self first, or if it's difficult for me to leave an unhealthy, toxic relationship and jump right into self-care and like, we're going to put Heather first now, woo, and be connected to myself, I will connect to that which I find to be truth. So if you're agnostic or atheistic, that might be Buddhism, shamanism, or witchcraft, all philosophy systems you can practice without having some level of concept of God, or, you don't necessarily have to hold that concept to practice those offerings. You can also, like self-help or whatever. Quantum mechanics has helped me a lot with understanding and shifting my attention. People who study neurosciences and consciousness, like ions, Joe Dispenza, some of the things I've been mentioning, those can help to shift my consciousness. So what I do is I either give my undivided attention when I'm experiencing disconnection back to the self. When we are disconnected from the self, we're going to be disconnected from others. If we're not in tune with our star player, our own desires, our feelings, our thoughts, then what we're offering is inauthentic. What you're offering your friends, your family members, your potential lover is inauthentic, because you're not in tune with what you actually feel and what you actually think and what does and does not work for you. And you're not speaking to that because you're just kind of bumbling through life, which is an option. And I'm not trying to judge that. I'm just saying, when you are connected to yourself, you can be like, oh, that's a pass. Thank you. No, I don't want to be part of that conversation. I'm over here. Oh, love what you're talking. Yes, let's bring this conversation and let me get to know you a little better. You can very clearly see what serves your frequency in the place that you're headed. So if I'm not able to step right into connection to self, one of the ways that I get there, because one of the core things I know about myself is I love spirit. I love spiritual teachings. I love spiritual offerings. I also love comedy, and I'm always trying to laugh, and I love music, and I love dancing. So I might turn towards a spiritual teaching. I might turn towards a comedian. I might turn towards a phenomenal album and dance around in my house, just to get my frequency realigned back to aspects of me through larger slices of the offerings here at life. So are you connected to yourself is the question I'm asking myself each day, because I feel recent loss, and I feel sad, and I feel like I'm grieving, and that I'm going to use that as an impetus and a motivation to get more centered in my vessel, more centered in my self-care, self-stewardship, self-respect, self-love, core values, knowing who I am, more journaling. And if not, I'm going to turn towards these larger aspects and concepts. Go to rarebirdmedicine.com and click on the classes link. We have a class on shamanism starting on Monday that definitely will support in connecting to the self. Blessed be.